Hello there, and welcome to the next episode of Overcome Yourself, the podcast. As you know, my name is Nicole, and I'm very excited to be here today with Albert. Now, Albert, I'm going to butcher it, so I'm going to go ahead and let you take it away for us, Albert. Let us know who you are and who you help.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you, Nicole, for having me on. I'm really happy to be here, be a guest on this show. My name is Dr. Albert Bramante. I am a talent agent as well as a psychology professor, author. I have a PhD in psychology. So I've been working as a college professor and also a theatrical talent agent in New York. I own Bramante Artists, which is a full service talent agency. So what I do primarily in this role is I represent actors for different projects, film, TV, theater, commercial print and voiceover, essentially acting as an employment agent. So trying to find them work and opportunities. And I'm also an adjunct professor on the side. So I teach usually three psychology classes a semester, uh, lifespan, usually child psych or word psychology and personality. So that's what I do. I wrote a book last year called Rise Above the Script, Confronting Self-Doubt and Mastering Self-Sabotage for Performing Artists, which has been, a lifetime pretty much of experience going into that book.
That is amazing. I love the crossroads of psychology and acting. And you also mentioned, right, helping business owners with acting. So that's one of the things that I've done is I ended up working with an acting coach, and that has helped me with this podcast, right? And being able to to
Mhm.
speak eloquently, and also working on my story, working on speaking on stages. So can you tell me a little bit how the psychology and the acting that we need as business owners who are putting ourselves out there?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely mentioned it quite well. I mean, just whether it's hosting, being a guest on a podcast, doing, uh, speaking on stages. One thing that you kind of, I think, a skill that we all can use benefit from is improvisation. What happens when you go on that stage and you're about to hit record and you have all these notes in front of you and something goes wrong, and now you have to speak off the cuff. And so I think what can happen there sometimes is we get so wrapped up in routine that we're not free enough to just speak off the cuff and improv or have that confidence enough to speak off the cuff. We're experts already. I mean, we've made the stages, we've made, the life experiences. So I think the point is that trusting yourself and not relying on things like I don't when I give presentation myself, I don't have that many notes in front of me because I speak off the cuff. And even when I do have notes in front of me, I don't reference them a lot because my role is connecting to the audience. So I think what acting can do, training or even improv training, is help you, be freer, but also connect to the audience or connect to whoever it is you're speaking with, whether it's a small group or a large group. So that I think can certainly help with the confidence a bit. Um, and I do recommend improv classes for business owners, speakers. Also, just doing anything to step outside your comfort zone, like exercise like that. Um, if you really want to throw somebody, on the deep end, have them go to a karaoke bar. Like I often say, sometimes do karaoke sober, and you really want to. That helps tremendously. I mean, I don't know how it feel. I can't say it's benefit for the audience, but it still is. It helps. You be freer when you're able to do that, and that's the biggest point of that. And you can play, even though you're still being serious with being a host or a speaker. It's still having that mindset of I'm playing now.
That's acting, right? We're playing.
Yeah, we're all playing a role, right now. So we're always acting in life. It's just being freer in that, and not being so much wrapped up into what am I going to say next, and worried about what's going to come next. And then we freeze, and then we wind up having issues that come in.
I think that's such a great tip of getting on a karaoke stage because I think we all have a fear of that stage. And
Yeah.
being able to do that in a low stakes situation where there probably is a bunch of drunk people who are not going to remember you anyway.
Yeah.
And you
Hey,
can just let loose and nothing, you're not, the world doesn't end. You're like, oh, okay, I can do this. Yeah, I love that.
yeah, well, and everyone's kind of, I mean, it's karaoke, so it's not, there's no one's expecting you to be, great. That's the whole purpose of it. It's to sing something fun that everybody can sing along with, and we all sound totally off key, but that's the fun of it. And it's freer. One of the things I've always talked about was stepping outside your comfort zone. And when maybe like 6 years ago, before the pandemic happened, I was happened to be around New York City. I had a long space in my day, and I said, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I saw there was a karaoke meetup. But when I initially went into the meetup, I thought I was going to be sitting and watching. Oh no. Um, it was a small group, and this is my first time. I've done karaoke before in open spaces. This is my first time doing it in a small closed off room. So when you normally do karaoke, a lot of times you can't really hear yourself singing.
Mhm.
So I remember everyone said, "Okay, put your songs," and I was going to hold back. They're like, "Okay," like Dan, you say, Albert, let me know what you're going to sing right now. And mind you, I had nothing to drink, no liquid encouragement. So at this time, I was like, well, I'm here. So I started singing. And what was even more terrifying in the moment was the fact that because it was such a closed off room, I actually heard myself loud and stereo. I sounded. I'm like, but, when I was done, I felt so good about the performance, not about the performance, but just the fact that I did that,
Mhm.
the fact that I was able to be brave enough to put myself out in a room with strangers I didn't even know. And I think that's a skill set that is important for speakers and hosts is to have that comfort or at least that ease of saying, okay, I can get up there and think. And also, I want to also mention one thing that nerves or anxiety is normal. I've even heard like Tony Robbins say sometimes that he gets a little bit of the jitters before going up to speak. So that, to get rid of that is, I think, a myth. How to use it now, though, for your advantage is the key.
Tell me
And,
more.
it can be adrenaline. It's like an
Yeah.
adrenaline rush. And that can actually sometimes fuel that. Like sometimes, I've in my past when I give presentation at the conferences or, in classes or on stages, I would sometimes, some of the times where I was the most nervous or tense was the best, jobs I've done because I was able to use that. The adrenaline kicked in and I was now in full force. Um, so yeah, that's sort of the thing I would kind of like in a nutshell, what I would say for business owners or hosts or whatever, that you're doing professionally, that just to be free in that. Even if you're taking, I'm not saying anyone needs to become a professional actor. That may be the first thing you want to do, but just being free to speak up on stage is the key thing there, and not appear like a robot. Because I've seen a lot. So we've been seen a lot of speeches where I'm like, they look like deer in the headlights look, and it's like, they're robotic like, and it doesn't come across very well.
Yes.
Um,
Well,
and
that's
and
what
also.
helps you stand out and
Mhm.
be memorable, right? Because people remember that you were confident, even if you sang kind of bad, it doesn't matter.
No, it's that. And we're drawn to bold, confident people,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that's also, there's also the thing about the statement, popular statement, "Fake it till you make it," which is partially true and partially not true. When I say partially true, I think a lot of times just project the confidence, even if you're not feeling it, project it, and it will follow because my background, like with NLP, neuro linguistic programming, is that if we sometimes show the action first, the the internal state will follow. Like for example, if you smile, Even if you're not feeling very, but if you smile for a while genuinely, your internal state will change. So that's why sometimes it's best if you want to show emotions, project the outwardly behavior first, and then it'll follow. So project confidence, and it will follow. So that's something I often say to ways to overcome. Do things and just practice. Do them. Like even like for podcasts, some people who want to be podcasters, I just tell them, look, shoot up, put yourself on Zoom, even if you do solo episodes in the beginning, and
Mhm.
you may not even release them in the beginning, and just say, hey, just get practice talking to yourself on Zoom for 20 minutes, half an hour on a topic. Even chat with some friends first in the beginning. Say, hey, let me get this the hang of interviewing you, because the more you do it, any task, the more comfortable you're going to be, and the more comfortable you are, the more effective you're going to be.
Yes.
Like, yeah. Hmm.
Um, just to mirror what you were saying, one of the tips that I got when I started my podcast journey, over 4 years ago at this point, was get to 100. Get to the first 100 episodes, because
Hmm.
you haven't even found your voice until
Yeah,
you've recorded 100 episodes.
exactly. And I would say I would even uh, qualify it and say at least a
At
hundred.
least. Hmm.
At least 100. And, if you think about it, unfortunately, a lot of podcasters don't reach that. They'll shoot, maybe 10 episodes. Oh, this is not working. No, sometimes you need 500 to 1,000, episodes before you get that large following. And the important thing is like, you're still doing it for the sake of enjoying it. So that's another thing too, is, do it for your own enjoyment, whatever it is you're setting out to be, whether you're a speaker or a host. If you do that for the sake of enjoyment, who the outcome, well, that's icing on a cake. If it comes great, if not, you had fun, and you and your guest had fun if you bring on a guest. And that's the only way to do that, I feel, is to just practice, and whether it's on stage, even in front of a mirror. I know it sounds, but just practice speaking and take every opportunity you can get, and just because that's the only way you're gonna get more comfortable out of it. It's one of those things like, if you want to get over your fear of public speaking, we got to rip the band-aid off,
Hmm. Hmm.
and you just got to do it. Because that's the only way you're going to overcome anything, is by sometimes doing it. Even in my work as with psychology, if you have a fear or phobia, the only way you're going to really overcome that fear is by facing it head on, which it's not going to be easy. I'm not going to sit there and say it's the easiest thing you'll do, but that's the way you overcome it. You got to sometimes stare it, head on.
Absolutely. Um, I've had so many thoughts just with everything you've said. One of the ones that you mentioned a few minutes ago, you were talking about people are drawn to a bold story, and it made me think of bravery the way that Dr. Brene Brown defines it, as vulnerability. And when we get up on that stage, that's vulnerability. And so that is something to be admired, that is something to be respected, and that is something that you have to do it to learn to ask the right questions, right? Because the first time I got on stage, I had prepared my presentation and I knew what I was going to say. And then they threw a pointer and a mic in my hand. And I was like, I did not plan for this.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't
Hmm.
think about it. And my knuckles were white because I was holding the microphone so tight. And I was like, relax, like it's not going to go anywhere, right? And those little things. And I didn't even know that was a question I had to ask till I was there.
Yeah. And that, yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with Brennan, that, because, a lot of people encourage the absence of fear. It's not. It's, and learning to, be work through it. And again, bravery could just be being vulnerable. And that's what people connect with. People connect with a speaker for, on a one-on-one basis, even though they may be speaking to thousands of people. The audience member is going to connect to a speaker that can resonate with them. So that's the one thing I would say. Sometimes even uh, what I advise speakers to do is sometimes look at particular people in the audience while you're speaking and pretend like you're just having that chat with that's your friend in the audience. And you just look at different people and you look around and you make eye contact. Because so many times I'll see these speakers that are looking up at the ceiling, they're looking up at their mic or their face is buried in their notes, and it's not going to come across as authentic, and you're not going to really be reaching the audience. So speak to somebody in that audience. Look at somebody and make eye contact and pretend like you're speaking to them. And yeah, be vulnerable. Be because people love authenticity, people love vulnerability, and that's what will really make. Because even if you listen to Tony Robbins, I mean, he gets extremely vulnerable on stage. Or any, Brené Brown, it's Mel Robbins, all these people that are like in the self help world and that have these, outstanding podcasts and these large followings, they're getting vulnerable every episode
Yes.
and, really going into and telling some deep stuff about their own lives. And I think that's what makes them so successful is they're not doing a canned script. They're not doing that. Even when I was in college, when I was in public speaking class, our professor would, if we noticed that we were relying on our note cards, he would come right up to us and take our note cards and put them on the desk. That guy keep going because, and that is terrifying. But the process is that, I really see the value on that lesson tremendously now. Like you should not be reliable on your note cards.
And I think that's a great point to tie back into, well, what does that have to do with acting if I'm just speaking off the cuff, right? And that is where I've learned to structure my stories with a purpose. If I'm going to take you down into the depths of my despair because I was there, I need a
Hmm.
plan for getting you back out. I need to know where the story is going because
Hmm.
I don't want to go on a tangent and, be like, oh my God, and then this happened. It was horrible. And now you're crying in a puddle and everybody feels bad. That's not the point, right?
No, no,
So
I not at all.
having that practice with an acting coach who can help you pinpoint those vulnerable moments that
But yeah,
you're ready to share, right? Because you have to have done the work internally
yeah,
and also structure getting out so that it serves a purpose to your story, to your business, to what you're doing.
of course. And it's always like that feel, felt, sound phenomenon. Okay, so this is how I feel. This is what I felt, and this is what I found. And if you keep that formula in there, it'll keep you track. So you're not. You can just take them down and then come back up and say, okay, I'm going to pivot, and here's how what I've learned, and here's how I overcome. Because a lot of times when you do tell these stories, you're connecting, and that's the best. The best speakers, if you think about it, tell stories. They're not just talking about facts. I mean, they may mix stuff in there, but they're gonna okay go back to a story and then have an outcome and because there's a good chance that somebody else is going through that story right now speaking. But yeah, having that focus, I mean, it's just being again that freeing moment. I think is so valuable. And that flexibility that anything can happen. You can get an audience member can make a comment or a question that can totally change the trajectory of your presentation. And I think you have to be ready for that. Um, Again, equipment can malfunction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is why I'm not, I like PowerPoint to a degree, but I don't rely on it because I could get up on stage if I'm totally relying on PowerPoint. What if there's a power failure? What if my cable or computer can't connect to the PowerPoint slides? Am I gonna fall like a bottle and collapse? No, I have to the show must go on. That's another acting thing. The show
Yes.
must go on. Even when you mess up as a speaker, a lot of times just continue. Just continue. That's the
Mm-hmm.
whole thing with acting. Like when people are performing in plays, you swap a line. Go. Don't dwell on it. And most of the time, the audience doesn't even pick up on that.
Right.
Unless you really draw attention to it. But other than that, just go with it. You say the wrong thing. Okay, well, correct yourself and move on. You're human. Your audience will either forget or they'll forgive. Even if they do catch on, they'll forgive you. Plus, we also, when we're self conscious, we actually are very harsh on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were times even when I thought like, oh, this is poorly done. People are not, and then people are coming, oh, that was great. I'm like, okay. Mhm. So, and if you do what another thing I do with even dealing with failure or feedback, constructive criticism, um, look at it as feedback. So one of the things I always tell anybody I work with, there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. So even if someone comes up to you after you hosted an episode or you've been on the stage and someone says, well, I feel like you could have done this better, or that better. Well, okay, now maybe that's their opinion, yes. But if there's something in there that you can gain, like, well, I didn't think of that. Okay, I'll make sure of that. Use more eye contact, look more around the room. Talk more about that. I wish you talked more about, okay, great. Now I know for next time not to dwell on and say, oh no, I did a horrible job. Last year I presented at a hypnosis conference. I did a topic on hypnosis and anxiety for an hour. It was a 45-minute talk. And there were 21 people in the room and they all submitted evaluations. 19 of them were 5 out of 5, which is amazing. One of them was like a 3 out of 5, it was unclear. One of them was really 1 out of 5, like totally like this was a messed up, disorganized presentation, a waste of my time. Now, the old Albert would have been crumbling like a puddle because, and it wouldn't have mattered that I just had 19 people telling me it was great. I would have been focusing and dwelling on that one person. And now, what I was really impressed was I let that roll off. I'm like, well, that was just, I'm sorry, I'm not even going to be everyone's cup of tea. I get that. That happens. Oh well, move on. You know, I impacted 19. Now if all 19 were saying that this was, then I would have to sit there and not dwell on it, but say, okay, well, next time I do this talk, I need to change a couple of things around. And so I use that as feedback.
Hmm.
I don't even like the word like I often reframe the word like constructive criticism. Can I give you some feedback? Because I think when you hear, what do you do? Think about somebody says to you, "Hey, I got some constructive criticism to give you." Automatically, like, okay, I'm gonna shut down. But it's like, hey, I have some feedback. So, what is some feedback from this? And I often say when you're giving feedback, one of the techniques I love to use is a compliment sandwich. You've ever heard of that? You say something good, and then something that can be improved, and you end off with a compliment. But feedback is it's less disarming, and it helps you overcome because that's the goal. We want to help other people overcome things. Well, sometimes we have to give them informed feedback, which may not always be complimentary, but also respectful enough so that we can grow from that. So being open to feedback is also part of the coaching process too, and to know that we're not perfect. Again, as you said, I would challenge every podcast host. Okay, listen to episode 1 and then listen to episode 100, and then even episode 200, and keep going. And then you'll see, oh, I'm getting better.
Hmm.
I'm getting better, and a lot of times your audience is tuning in. They're not tuning in because they're looking for ball. They're looking to be inspired. So they're not going to be noticing the flubs or the here and there all the time.
Yeah.
So just practice. That's the whole thing too. Even with acting, it's just practice every day. But that's with any skill. Whether it's acting, speaking, playing sports, playing music, it's just daily practice.
Yeah. To your point, if they don't know that it's supposed to be there. I used to be a server and we used to have to go to the whole spiel. This is this menu, this is this menu. But let me tell you, every time I went through the little spiel, I always made more in tips because I sold more stuff, right? But we would have to go through a certain process and the managers would remind us, when we were opening up the restaurant, they were like, they don't know the order. So if you mess it up, you keep going, they're not going to be like, oh, you did it wrong, because they don't know. And if they do know, like if the audience knows, right, you messed up a line and the audience is like, adoring the play, they know every line, and they see that you messed it up, but you didn't let that rattle you, they're gonna be impressed. They're gonna be like, oh, she fumbled a little bit, but that didn't even stop her at all. Like she just
Yeah,
kept going. So either way, you win.
of course, and that's why it's just go with it. I mean, and that's where I feel like some of the acting training will be good for you. The improv training will do because it'll just tell you to just like use a technique of yes and okay, made the mistake and let's keep going. So that afterwards it can be a lot easier. And yeah, I mean, and most of the people that are in a restaurant are when they're listening to the specials, they're gonna be finding out what they want, not whether you said this before or not. And they already have their mind up a lot of times when they sit into that chair what they already want. So they're just hearing you, but it's connection. It's showing them when you do that, I respect you. And those are the wait staff that get the most tips are the ones that show the most genuine interest and care for the customer or the patrons.
The ones that paint the best story, because it was all about creating that experience, right? Of elevating it. You're not just here to eat a random Tuesday, like it's Margarita Tuesday. Let's make it a party, right? And you create an
Mhm.
experience, you're acting, you're letting them know these are the amazing things. Yeah, and that's acting too, right? You have a script and everything.
Of course.
So tell me, how can
Mhm.
the audience stay in touch with you?
Okay, well, you can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Al Bramante. Um, I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook, under Albert Bramante. Feel free to reach out, DM me, if there's anything you want to talk about. You can also go to my website at albertbramante.com, which has, recordings and things, confidence builders for any and all issues. Feel free to, take a look at that. Um, and also my book. I just want to give a plug for my book. It's called Rise Above the Script, Confronting Self-Doubt and Mastering Self-Sabotage for Performing Artists. It's available on Amazon. I have it both as a paperback, a Kindle, and also audiobook. So feel free to, check it out. And I'd love to have any conversations with you moving forward. And
I
and I
love
want to
that.
thank you again
Yes,
for
of
having me on
course.
here.
And remember, if you're a speaker, if you're a podcast host, if you're a podcast guest, if you're doing PR, you're a performing artist in your own way.
Mhm.
And this book is going to be super helpful. I can already tell just because you're such an expert. Like, and I love, like I said, that you mix, it's not just the acting side of it, you have that psychology background. And so I just think that those two things, that's just such a winning combination. So that is amazing. Great resource.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you again for having
Perfect.
me.
Yes, of course. And final tip, can you leave us off with what's like the biggest tip that you share with your audience that leaves them with the biggest aha moment?
Sure. Remember what it is that you're doing, and celebrate all your wins, small or large. Well, there's really no such thing as a small win. A win is a win. So, in my book, I talk about the happy file. So, one of the things about the happy file is you get out a physical journal. I'm old school here, and write down anytime if you're a speaker or host or you get a compliment from an audience member or someone who was an attendee. You get a good review if you're an actor or a compliment from an audience member. Any type of compliment you get, document that. So when moments of self doubt come in, which is a human condition, it's normal to have self doubt. I have self doubt. We all have self doubt at times. Pull out your happy file when those self moments of self doubt comes in, and that'll remember why you're connected, why you're doing what you're doing, and then it'll help you still, maintain connection to your why. So that's what I would have to say.
I love that. We didn't even talk about gratitude, but gratitude is like the foundation of everything I do. So I love that you brought it up. And
Mhm.
I love that you call it the happy file. It could be a happy file, it could be a happy jar, it could be a happy whatever, right? But I
Yeah.
love that. That's awesome.
Yes. Whatever you want to call it.
Yay.
So, all
Thank you
right.
so much.
Thank
This has
you.
been amazing. All right. And we will catch you guys next time on the next episode of Overcome Yourself, the podcast. Bye.